This is Diamond D with where I'm giving you some love advice, some happiness advice, some everyday good advice to make your day a little more loving. Hello, this is Diamond D with Love and Happiness, where I'm giving you some love advice, some happiness advice, some everyday good advice, day a little more loving. Today we have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Marilyn Butler onto the show. Doctor has a doctorate of higher education leadership and has written several publications and books, including Finances. She and her husband, David, currently lead a financial ministry in the Woodlands, Texas area. Thank you, Marilyn, for being on today's show. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Dee. I'm so happy to be here today.
So you and your husband, David, co-authored a book, Faith and Finances. Can you tell me a little bit more about your book?
Faith and Finances is a workbook for learning how to manage your finances accordingly. And it came out of the need to have about a 6 to 8 book that would be about 6 to 8 weeks of lessons that would show people how to live on it and to trust God for their needs.
And I believe prior to have your own personal story and a testimony of how you and David got involved with the financial ministry.
Yes, we do. And that experience led to our writing the book. 25 years writing Faith and Finance. And we do have, would you like for me to tell you about that?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, in the mid-80s, had a financial economic crisis, very much like what we're going through today. But still, nevertheless, it affected many people and affected them, those people. David had a business in it, and he was heavily invested in real estate, as well as that was his source of and oil prices dropped, and the get collapsed in the Houston area and in many other parts of the country too, but it was very severe in Houston, and as a result, we lost all of our financial wealth, and it was a really challenging time in our life and with our family. We wailed during that time, and it was difficult on him because he feels his duty of protecting and providing his family, and it was difficult for him to provide for us at that. During this time, we turned to God's word for answers and the world's answers, and there we found what we were looking for. And we connected with Larry Burkett, who at that time had founded Financial Concepts, now Crown Ministries, and we began reading books and working through the steps that led us down a path that eventually financial freedom and out of the bondage of debt in our lives. So it was a really, in our marriage and in our ministry.
So out of that situation, which is similar to what we're experiencing now with COVID-19 and the pandemic, you were able to grow and have the seed planted for your ministry. You mentioned Crown had a sort of method for how to deal with crisis situations like we have with COVID-19.
Very responsive to the crisis that we're in, and really people's needs that had either lost their income, lost their job, or in their job. And so if you would allow me to, I'd like to take you to the Crown website, and it can be found at work. And we are going to go to their coronavirus page.
Okay.
So we are now at the crown.org website, and we're on the virus page. They have wonderful resources here, so I recommend to listeners that they check it out. But what we're going to look at today is their needs-based crisis, and this is something I'm suggesting everyone consider. And there are 5 steps to it. I'm going to add. I think anytime we're in a crisis, well, anytime,
Right.
we need to pray as we go forth. And so before even starting the budget, my recommendation would be to pray for God's will and God's way as you go through. Wait, yeah, there we go. Now, the first step is to determine your current monthly, and you're going to do that by taking what your income level was before the crisis and subtract the monthly income that has been lost. So what you want to do is find out what you have in income during this time of crisis. And of income, it could be, you could have severance pay, unemployment benefits, you could have a CARES Act check, you could have other available savings, include all your income, and then adjust that to be your new monthly income. The second thing you're going to do, this here on the screen, is make a commitment. Make a commitment before the Lord to within your income and to not incur any new debt. And that's something that's a personal choice. The third thing is you need to prioritize needs are important to understand. We find our needs in looking at needs and desires. And needs are those things that we need to survive. Those would be food, clothing. I think in current days, especially based on the city you live in, like Houston has urban sprawl in Houston. We do not have mass transportation. Medical care would be basic needs for survival. A want is something that is really nice to have, but desire is something that we have when all of our needs, all of our expenses are met, excess. So this is going to be a needs-based budget. And you should look at the clothing, transportation, medical expenses as your top priorities. And the things that you, discretionary spending, you will want to stop. And during this time of separation, we are most of them while we're in quarantine. Then you need to look at your non-essential, like buying new clothes, gift giving, home improvement, and also the subscriptions that you might have. Take another look at those and see what you can eliminate, and just keep those things that you definitely need. So you then will total for your expenses based on needs. Monthly income before the crisis. This is a fillable form that's on the Crown website, which I think is track the monthly lost job income that we talked about, and add the new monthly income that we talked about, unemployment benefits, for example. And here is your newly adjusted monthly. Based on that income, you're going to prioritize your expenses. And here are a list of housing, food, transportation, and then you will subtract those money left at the end. You may or may not, depending on your personal situation. It's the balance at the end, if you have one, that should go into a savings account, an emergency account. Out of that emergency savings account, you you can live as your income. So that could be your new salary. And then there are other things we can do with that, and we'll talk about that in just, if you come through this crisis and you still have money left in your, everyone should have an emergency fund though, so it's always a good practice. But this is a great resource to the website, and look for this.
Yes, it does sound like it would be a valuable tool for our viewing audience. Dr. Marilyn, can you address what people should do in terms of, student loan this pandemic?
That's a great question, Dee. Student loans, debt, where does debt fall when we have no income, when we have no money? Well, we need to meet our needs, our family's needs. That's going to be food, clothing, those things. And for a time, we will put those debts aside and income, and are able to pay, and we'll always be working towards that goal. We recommend that you call, you explain your situation, that you intend to pay the debt, you are unable to pay the debt right now. You are able, you will do so. It is very important that we guard our witness during this time, and that we guard our virtue, the way that we handle things. So highly recommend that you call and try to talk to the right person about what you intend to do. You can be certain that it is in your file. And then when you're able, you will follow through on the promise that you have made and pay off that debt as best you can and as fast as you can.
Very good advice. Could you also talk a little bit about, sort of the post-pandemic situation and where things is getting back to a new normal, because I don't think it'll be back to the old normal pre-pandemic, and where people are able to thrive and make a good deal of income, and how it with investments, savings, and just handling their finances.
Well, I think it's really important all the time, but especially at this time, that we trust God knows the future. And so we seek His will and His way for what we do with the resource of us. And that's going to be not only our money, but our families and our jobs, and we seek His will for our life. And I think there will be many opportunities as we go forward to invest in the economy, and that we should do. I do think it's going to be a new normal. I agree with you. I think it's going to be different than it was before. Return slowly to this new economy, but an economy that could mean that you take money from your savings account and you use that to invest, and that could be buying real estate. That could be some other form of investment. The second thing that I would recommend doing is that you invest in people. The things that is so great about serving other people, it takes the focus off of self and puts it on, and it just is a great tool for going to invest in another person that perhaps has a greater need than you have. And I would say, if you have come through this and you have not found employment yet, you have a savings account that will fund your resources that you need until you are able, and that's a really good feeling to have that money set set aside and not go into further debt. Those are three things that I would recommend, starting out with trusting God first.
Very good. You and your husband, David, have been married for over 50 years. And through that marriage, not only some wonderful children, but you also birthed a whole financial ministry. Which can you give our listeners and viewers some marital advice when it comes to
Yes, I'd be
personal
happy
marital
to.
advice?
Yeah, well, let me just tell a little bit about our marriage as we came through this crisis. There are going to be many crises. And we know that in marriage and just in life, and we have trials, and we go through, I think we're allowed those trials to learn and to be able to, and that's really what, as I said earlier, that's what happened to us. And it was important, this crisis, that we learn to communicate. So that's probably one of the, after trusting God, that was probably one of the most important things, was learning to communicate. And we had that because we're different people, and God's given us different personalities. And in fact, in marriage, usually puts opposites together, and that's exactly the way we are. David is very analytical, and I am very visionary, and I like multiple projects. He likes one single project, some work to do on how to communicate. And what we learned is that God put into a marriage people that are the same. He usually puts into a marriage people that are different because he wants in their marriage in that way. So we came to understand that. We always just look at that as like that are interwoven. And if you lift a weight with one hand, you can't lift very much. If you put both of your hands together to lift, you can lift 4 or 5 times more weight than you could have previously. So together we're stronger, and in doing so, we do are more effective in ministry together also. So we had to learn that. We had to learn that, and then from Larry Burkett and his ministry was that I wanted to celebrate that difference, and that even the Holy Spirit that lives in us would speak to one or the other. Look at it as just two halves of the whole, and God may choose to speak in this ear, this is speaking this ear, but he's communicating with us and with the one that's listening. So those are really great things. I had to really focus on, especially during this time of trial, it was really hard on him, and very hard to not blame him for the situation. And you know, blame is so easy, but I do what I came to really appreciate. It takes us right back to original sin, and that we had to just take responsibility in any kind of a situation, any kind of trial, and not blame another person. And then the second thing that I worked hard on was during difficult times to be content, to be in what God had provided, and be content in my marriage, content in my family, and my home. I realized that when I was not content, I was really questioning God's provision in my, and that is not where I want to be. I want to be thankful. And so I can always work on being content where I've been placed with what I've been given. So those several really important relational issues that I think are important to a marriage. And as you probably know, that 50% of them are years. And of those 50%, 90% of them fail because of money problems. It's not because they don't love each other. It's because they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to be in relation. That is really a critical concern, is being able to communicate.
I know that in talking to you before, you had mentioned something about dates and intimacy through money. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I think one of the things that I like to say when we're working with couples is finances can be a gateway to intimacy in a marriage. Because if you can talk just about anything, so I always encourage people to let that be, because you're going to get to know your spouse better, and you're going to get to learn how to work together, and so that's an exciting thing, and that is what's happened in our marriage as well. On the client, they have something called money dates, and so it is a time set aside with your spouse when you go through a particular part of how to deal with your finances. Of course, it's never just about money. It's always about relationships. So I highly recommend those two. You can also at a crown.org website.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Marilyn, for being on the show. I do. And thank you for David, too, for sharing you with the world. So you have blessed me, and you have blessed other viewers as well. And I would like to leave, you're welcome. I would like to leave my viewers with this quote from Monroe Trout. And it said, have an approach that makes money, then money management can make the difference between success. I love you, and God loves you too.